Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today we are talking about archetypes that are not that old, that actually could really realistically be on the block for 2023 to potentially get not just support, but like really good support, because Konami's been showing us some trends of going that route. It's really cool. So before we get into anything, subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this from the channel down the line. But as far as we're talking about today, Photon Hypernova has all of its OCG reveals, right? We don't have the set yet. We'll get in a couple months early in 2023. In that, we've been seeing this, and even a couple sets before this, they gave awesome support for archetypes that are only somewhere between 2 to 4 years old. So we have Generator, they got a new extra deck and main deck monster that helped them a ton. Spring-ins never even were playable competitively. I think they could legit be like a respectable rogue deck, or even be splashable in other decks, which is really cool. And then also Evil Eye, a deck that also never really saw much play except for like very specific instances, now gets their engine pushed so much. And also Plunder Patrol, there was other ones, but in other sets, but it's a really cool trend Konami's been doing where like archetypes that aren't even that old, that have already kind of weren't meta out the gate and have kind of phased back a little bit, boom, new support 2 to 4 years later, and they're like back up there as like a relative rogue deck, a relatively decent rogue deck. So today we're talking about everything that fits into that 2 to 4 year window for 2023 that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, we're just gonna jump right into that. So starting off on our list, we're going to go in chronological order. This is anything that like hasn't already seen that kind of support. Starting with Infinitrack. Now, some of these are going to be weird because Infinitrack, nobody plays Infinitrack. You play Earth Machine, right? Whoa, jeez. Cheesy beans. That was crazy. All right. So for Infinitrack, nobody plays Infinitrack. You play Earth Machine. So over the years, we've gotten other Earth Machine stuff. We got like the Machina structure deck, and that's been huge for the deck. Stuff like that. So we haven't gotten Infinitrack support in a while, but we could easily see like a new Infinitrack card. And by the way, this came out in a set with Witchcrafter, which just is getting their fusion like this week in the TCG in Magnificent Mavens, which is great for them. And Evil Eye is the other archetype from that deck build pack. Just for examples of other archetypes in the same deck build pack getting their awesome support 4 years later. Pretty cool. Next up we have Tenny. This is a weird one because it was part of Sword Soul and it literally like won nationals this year for North America, or got second or something. So it's been part of a meta deck, and technically Sword Soul supported this archetype more than any Tenny support ever did. But I wouldn't be surprised if Konami came through and said, you know what, let's give him an actual another Tenny card. Why not? I wouldn't be surprised. Unchained. Unchained is a huge one. This is one of the just most standalone ones to me. This is a fan favorite archetype. It has been relevant rogue for like a couple of years, but now I feel like it's getting to the point where it's fallen back a little bit. Archetypes have gotten better as of recently, and just they have access to non-destruction removal, which hurts this deck a lot. So yeah, like this is definitely a deck where like I would love to see their engine get pushed a little more. And I think it just makes sense monetarily for Konami's standpoint. Like, this is a fan favorite archetype. People go crazy if you made legit good modern Unchained support. So I think that's a huge one there. Chamber or Dragon Maids in general. Chamber is the last card they actually got for the archetype, but they did just get Bestial. Technically, it's not part of their archetype, but it seems to be the best way to play the deck, and it's really nice support for them at the end of the day. So, you know, they're better as of recent inadvertent support, but technically we haven't got a Dragon Maid card. Plus, people talk about all the time how I guess we don't have the big dragon form of Chamber, so eventually we'll probably get that. So why not 2023? I get it. And then Adamemancipator is the last one from 2019. We've gotten small cyber support since 2019. I mean, we were out of Link Vrains, in 2020, the Vrains era, I believe. So I understand why Konami reeled back a little bit on the cyber support, but we got Heat Soul eventually to the TCG, and we've gotten small cybers things sprinkled in here and there, but nothing crazy. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go back. I mean, technically we have Cyberstorm Access coming up. I don't even know what kind of cyber stuff they're going to put in there, but you know, if it's generic, it'll work for everything. Maybe it could just be actual Adamemancipator support. Who knows? But yeah, the door's definitely open for them. Although I don't think they need it much. I think they have one card combos for crazy tower setups. I think that's always going to keep them relevant as a rogue deck for years and years to come. I think there'll always be formats where this deck could like sneak in and like be annoying. Moving into 2020, Nemesis. This is a weird one because Nemesis has really never felt like a full-on deck, so they would need more than just 1 or 2 cards, I feel like, to actually feel like it's doing the same thing it's doing for some of these other archetypes. But it's a cool one. You know, and also Protoss is banned, so like it's weird. It's just like a weird engine you'll see splash from time to time in like crazy combo decks usually. But yeah, I think it's definitely like relevant enough. So they could go through with it and try to make some crazy support. I just don't know how they'd go about it. It's definitely one of the weirder ones on here. Eldlich. Now, this one is really interesting because I will say this. I know people are going to say, John, Eldlich has been relevant for the last 3 years straight. Super annoying trap deck I have to deal with. I don't want to. I'm happy they're not good anymore because of Bestials and Ishizu cards. And I'm with you. But here's the thing. Even if something happens on the ban list to those engines, they will not just ban them. They're not just going to ban every Bestial name, right? So they will always exist as just better versions of DD Crow versus light and dark decks. We'll see them in side decks for years to come. We'll see them in main decks for specific formats that are light and dark based. And they're just going to be there. So this deck is always going to have to compete with those. And same thing with the Ishizu cards. I mean, I don't foresee them just straight up banning Mudora or Kelda, which are like the graveyard shufflers. Those are the super annoying ones for Eldlich to deal with. I don't see them just outright banning those cards. They're just going to exist for Eldlich to deal with going forward. So combine that with the fact that the only support post like original release for Eldlich that they've ever seen was the Fusion Monster, and nobody wants to play that in Eldlich because it's just not good. I could see them giving support to it. I really could. Maybe it'd be another main deck monster or two. Maybe it'd be another spell card. I don't know. Another trap card. And like something to help push the engine a little bit further. I don't know exactly what it'd be. I'd love to see a little normal summon Eldlichable monster. And maybe he counts as Golden Lord while he's on the field or graveyard so that he still can make some of the traps synergy like work. Even if you don't have the big boy. And it makes your deck maybe a little bit less susceptible to like big boy just getting like banished. That could be really cool. And maybe he's like a really good normal summon. Like add an Eldlixir and send a Golden Land or vice versa. You know what I mean? On normal summon. Like that could be kind of crazy to push your engine, add some speed, add another name, and lower your weakness to those graveyard removals. Like, I don't know. I think that could be something pretty cool. Also, Adamemancipator. In the opposite sense of Eldlich, Eldlich now has to deal with that stuff permanently, but Adamemancipator, if you're hoping Block Dragon comes back, like, don't come back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Until 2030. Like, straight up. We're not getting Block Dragon until power creep has gotten so crazy, because the card's still too much, and it will be for years to come. So, now that I just kind of accept the reality that, like, Block Dragon's not coming back anytime soon, like, I could see them going and giving them support in the same vein as Eldlich. The only thing I can think of post-original release that this archetype's gotten that was any kind of good is Adamemancipator Friends, but that only supported, like, a super pure variant that nobody wanted to play. So, yeah, and, like, also Rika got support this year and, like, is, by the way, the best competitive deck out of that deck build pack right now, which is really funny to think about in post thought. But yeah, I think Adamemancipator would be really funny. They are rock though, so like if we got a new rock archetype, that could be another way to support them. So they don't necessarily need direct Adamemancipator support to, you know, get support, but like, you know, there's still a deck that could be bumped up soon. Infernobyl Knights. They are getting their V-Jump promo soon in the OCG. So that's one thing that's like kind of weird, because sometimes that means we're going to get other support elsewhere. Like that's kind of what they do. They hint at stuff with like V-Jump promos or synergize it with other support we're getting. But it could also just be a card that kind of synergizes with Mikanko, which is the other new archetype that's coming in the deck build pack early January, I believe, for the TCG. So if that's what it's about, then we're not going to get anything. But I do think it is on the table. We could possibly see an Infernobyl Knight card or two. I don't know what they do. I feel like the best way to support them at this point is just make better and better equip spells that are not bricks, that are legit starters, extenders, stuff like that. But we'll see. We'll see where we end up there. Maybe we get an equip spell that's just like a straight up interruption while it's equipped to an Infernobyl. Mutants. Mutants are weird because, like, I believe this guy came out in Battle of Chaos. So he technically came out in 2023, but he was one of the later releases of 2020, or of 2022, sorry. This is one of the later releases of 2020, so they kind of released at the end of 2020. for the OCG, I believe. So this technically be, I think it would be 2021 where a mutant technically came out originally a year. 2021 is where they get the final like follow-up support. And then a year later, which would be 2023, middle to late 2023, maybe they'll get another card or two. They're an interesting archetype. I don't like that they have to play their big bricky boss monsters in the main, but it is what it is. They're still cool, and I'd like to see support for them. Virtual World joins this list, and I know it's another archetype like Eldlich, like Adamemancipator, where you're like, no, Virtual World, you had to deal with VFD. But VFD's gone. As long as VFD's gone, this deck isn't that oppressive. And here's the thing, I never really felt like Virtual World's engine has been power crept out. It just, when it had the payoff of VFD, you put up with the fact that the deck had inconsistency issues because it had the crazy payoff of VFD. But when they lost VFD, you know, you're going to put up with consistency issues for a deck that almost plays more control now than combo, or at least when you were going for VFD. Like, so it was weird. So I'd love to see like support for them that's not even necessarily like an engine boom, but almost just makes them more consistent, whether it's a new spell starter or maybe an actual normal summons. That way you can have a good normal summonable name for Virtual World, which would be really cool. And maybe it gets you a plus in some way. So that would kind of do a little bit of both, helping the engine be a little bit better and helping the deck be more consistent at the same time. That would be really cool. I'd like to see that because I like the way this deck plays. I like that its boards aren't like overwhelming, like crazy negates. It's like a Shen like decent floodgate, a Chuche pop, and then like maybe one other monster on board, like maybe one other negate. Maybe it's what's that card called? The freaking dragon. The Synchro Dragon. The Wind Synchro Dragon just negates monster effects. Whatever. Can't remember his name right now. But yeah, I think that would be interesting. Moving on from there, Tron. Same thing as Eldlich. They now have to deal with Bestial and the Shizu Fairies going forward for life. I know they've had like some pretty stupid, annoying win conditions at times, but it doesn't matter what support they get. They're probably going to be cooked just because that stuff exists now in Yu-Gi-Oh! So yeah. Zorua, the Magistus Conflagrant Calamity. Magistus makes so much sense to me. This one doesn't seem to be as big of a fan favorite archetype as something like Unchained, but they tied this in with a bunch of other spellcaster archetype lores. It has synergy, I believe, with like Witchcrafter. Is it Spellbooks? Trying to think of what the other one is. Dogmatic is not part of that, I don't think. Can't remember the other archetype. There's like one or two other archetypes as well that kind of, is it Charmers? I can't remember. There's like 4 or 5 spellcaster archetypes that like all kind of synergize with lore into this archetype. You know Konami loves their lore-based archetypes and when they combine, so I do believe they'll come back to this. This archetype has a lot of really cool pieces. It just feels like it isn't meshed together yet right. So if they got 1 or 2 really, really good pieces, they could use a really good extender. They could use another really good starter, like spell maybe, like, I don't know. There's definitely a lot of room for this deck to grow, and especially because I always thought that a lot of the pieces in Magistus stuff could go towards like an actual spellcaster combination deck, but it never came to fruition. So that would be really cool, and I think it makes a ton of sense. And the last one here from 2020 would be SForce. They technically, kind of like Mutant, came out in the end of 2020, but they got a new card in 2 new cards in early 2022. So if we wait for a year from early 2022 to early 2023, then I think in the back half of 2023 we could actually see more SForce cards. I would love to see it. This archetype is prime for that treatment. It reminds you of Spriggans, right? Never relevant, but has some interesting pieces. No, not good enough payoff for it. 1 or 2 cards to tie this archetype up together really nicely in a bow. This could be a legit rogue deck, kind of like how Spriggans is about to be early 2023 in the TCG. Makes a ton of sense. And even before we leave, I'll give you my 3 top picks here. If I can get any of these, I'll give you my 3. SForce is definitely in there for me. Magistus, definitely in there for me. And then obviously you guys could probably tell by the way I was talking about it. Unchained. Those would be my top 3 that I would want to see. But I do think all these archetypes are on the block to get new support. And what's cool is that most of these archetypes, not bad archetypes. Most of these are like currently considered rogue and could get more support. So I love it. I love what Konami's doing. Hopefully they keep it up. And I can't wait to see what ends up getting support in these 2023 core sets. Really, really excited. So there you go. That's the video for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, subscribe to the channel, of course, if you want to see more videos like this one from your boy down the line. And I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.